Educators can choose from a variety of EdTech tools to enhance their classroom activities. But with so many options available, technology can sometimes get overwhelming. You start by using one tool to create class content, another to assess students, then another one for collaboration, and things can easily get out of control. Instead of saving time using technology, teachers end up spending more time switching between apps, moving data from one system to another, and trying to make various tools work together. There is actually a simpler, better way of teaching and learning online. Neo is a learning platform for schools and universities that provides all the essential tools for creating and managing learning activities. With an intuitive design, Neo makes learning an enjoyable experience for students and enables teachers to expand their activities beyond the classroom walls. Educators can build engaging classes suited for their teaching style without any technical knowledge and include their favorite resources and media files. With Neo, teachers can easily evaluate what students learn in classes using a variety of assignments such as quizzes, essays, debates, and more. Assessment is simplified using our grading tools and assignment types, and educators can keep all student results centralized in the gradebook. Teachers can get instant analytics on student progress and quickly identify areas where they might need additional help. To increase student mastery of subjects, teachers can define the skills and knowledge they should acquire through classes, then track on a competency basis how well they understand the concepts. Educators can make classes more dynamic and adapted to their needs using advanced, innovative functionalities such as automation and adaptive learning. You can trigger automated actions and personalize what content students see in classes based on their progress. Students have an enjoyable experience with Neo. Earning points and badges in games makes learning more fun and engaging. Also, being able to access Neo on any device makes students more self-directed learners and involved in activities even when they are not at school. Sign up now for a 14-day free trial and join the millions of happy Neo users.
Good morning. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Kabiru Mohammed Aliu, and I'll be your host for today. Thank you very much again. The Learning Space, in partnership with Cypher Learning, Virtual Formatics, El Buhaj Royal Academy, and Gateway Excel College, present to you this webinar. And the webinar is around complementing physical learning with a learning management system. You would agree with me that this is a fantastic topic to discuss today because of how the schools are slowly resuming. Various countries are considering various methods in ensuring that the learners are resuming in a safer environment. However, the topic today, which is complementing physical learning with a learning management system, is very important, especially for the development of youth and to develop learners that will end up becoming citizens of the country or the country in which they operate from. Very, very important topic. Now, I would like to do some introductions very quickly. I would like to introduce Cypher Learning. Cypher Learning is the world's best in learning management system, providing learning platforms for schools, businesses, and entrepreneurs, with presence in over 100 countries and headquarters in San Francisco, California. Now, I would like to introduce Virtual Formatics. Virtual Formatics is an ICT engineering firm that provides ICT services, including the deployment of learning management system. Now, El Buhaj Royal Academy is a school based out of Kano and is there to provide youths with a platform for learning and to develop the future leaders. I would like to introduce Gateway Excel College. Gateway Excel College also provides, education for secondary school and have been developing youth for a long time. Now, El Buhaj Royal Academy and Gateway Excel College are all users of our learning management system, and they are also on the panel today to discuss their experiences and to tackle a number of issues that we're currently facing. Thank you very much. Again, if you are just joining, welcome to the session. And again, my name is Kabiru Mohammed Aliu. I'm your host for today. I would like to introduce the presenter for today. Jane Padanal is the Director of E-Learning Integration at Cypher Learning. She has more than 20 years as an education administrator. Jane has presented in many countries, including US, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and the Philippines. She's very experienced and very passionate about education. So we are honored to have Jane. And Jane has also attended our various webinars and is here to continue to add value to this conversation. Now, to introduce the panelists for today, I would like to introduce Aisha Bello. She's the SMB executive of Virtual Formatics and also teaches at El Buhaj Royal Academy. So as you can see from her caliber, she will be discussing her experience, especially from a teaching perspective as well. Now introducing Mr. Itodo S. Samuel. Mr. Itodo teaches chemistry and physics at Gateway Excel College, providing his students with innovation and critical thinking. He's a top 50 finalist of the Global Teacher Prize in 2018. He has lots of experience in teaching and particularly lots of experience in developing youths. Very passionate if you follow him on social media around critical topics. Now, introducing Mr. Nafiu Mohammed. Mr. Nafiu Mohammed is the principal at El Buhaj Royal Academy. He has lots of experience in teaching. And very importantly as well, he's a seasoned maths teacher and has a very strong passion for education and developing our future youths. Now, introducing Shane Gozia Kezi. She's the SMB executive for Transform Africa and also very passionate about the education space as well. Now, these are panelists that we'll be discussing after we have done with the presentation for today. Please sit back and really engage us. We have our Q&A section. Please post your questions there. We will do our best to answer as best as possible. It is important that we continue to talk about this topic because education is the future, right? It's the future of any society, and education is important in making sure that we shape our youth in the right direction. But more importantly as well, using technology like a learning management system cannot be overemphasized. I know that we have attended a lot of webinars over this period, but however though, this topic is relevant because we don't want people to ditch the gains that they have made with considering or testing out or trying out learning management system. We want them to continue to use the elements to benefit, the society. And also, one of the things about Cypher Learning is that they have gone advanced in learning management system. They now have the offline mode of a learning management system. So if you're considering people that are struggling with data, people that are in remote areas. This is also can also be a very viable solution to continue education and to continue learning, meaning that students can now download their materials on their phone or have it on their app and then utilize the app or utilize learning even if they don't have data. This is fantastic development that is happening in the learning management system. So allow me to call on Jane to take us on the presentation for today. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon. Oh, good morning, everyone. I keep saying good afternoon because I am at the other side of the world right now. I am here in the Philippines. As I'm not sure. I think it was mentioned that I am in the Philippines right now. So, good morning to all of you. Good afternoon to those who are not in the same time zone. We're probably being watched or joined by a lot of people worldwide. So again, my name is Jen Padernal, and currently I am the Global Director for E-Learning Integration of Cypher Learning. I am also an educator, just like everyone else here. That's why I'm always excited to do a webinar for all of you, especially for teachers, educators like me. I'm always excited about that, doing webinar and sharing my experiences, especially this topic, which I find very, very relevant these days, complementing physical learning with learning management system. I am an educator who lives and teaches in the Philippines. And Philippines, if you've heard of it, is a country that is affected by natural disasters, such as typhoons, earthquake, monsoon rains. So these are flooding. So these are some of the natural disasters that we are experiencing. Actually, we just had a typhoon a couple of days ago. So our country is being visited by typhoons almost 20 times a year. And imagine that when that happens, therefore classes are also suspended. Kind of like what's happening now. There's a pandemic and all of us, okay, are teaching and working probably from home. These types of disasters, when they strike, every aspect of life can be, and usually is, negatively impacted. And education makes no exemption for that. That is why I'm very happy to be here with everyone today to share with you some of the ways by which we can complement physical learning or brick and mortar learning with the learning management system. This is a very timely topic, I must say, because sooner or later, okay, but I hope sooner, this extraordinary occurrence of pandemic will end. And every one of us will be able to go out and live as normally as we used to. And as mentioned earlier, a lot of schools right now are starting to open, and everyone is going back. Almost a lot of students and teachers are already going back to school. And when we all go back to physical classroom, I hope it does not mean that we will also stop the initiative that we have all started in the area of e-learning and in using digital tools for teaching and learning just because we're back in the classroom. Just so you know, there are many schools who are able to survive and adjust quite easily to remote learning when this pandemic happened, because these schools have already been using various digital tools or education platform, a learning management system for one, as part of their teaching and learning activities or as part of their teaching and learning endeavor. Okay, so we have been at the school where a very good example of this is the school where I'm teaching. I have been teaching into this school for the past decade, or I have been with this school for the past decades. So please don't count my age. Okay, so and in this school we have been into e-learning and using the learning management system Neo LMS for the past 11 years, and this have helped us. I tell you, this have helped us survive this extraordinary occurrence that's happening now, this pandemic. We have implemented different modalities of teachings that complements our physical learning. While some schools are caught flat-footed because they did not embrace the idea of using an LMS before, there are also schools who have been more proactive. And this is what I want to share with you today. How are we going to be able to complement physical learning with an LMS? And I would be able to show this to you very effectively if I share with my own experience, because I've experienced this personally. Okay, when the pandemic, and then later on, probably during the demo, I can show you my own class on how suddenly we're doing a physical class and then we need to do remote learning. Did we panic? Did we complain about it? What did the school do? Are we prepared? I would probably say we're one of the schools who are most prepared for it, because from the very beginning, we started embracing physical learning and complementing it with the learning management system. Now, how do we do that? It's been mentioned earlier, blended learning, hybrid learning as an approach would probably help us do just that. Using hybrid learning as an approach helps, and it's always something that this is also something that I advocate, and this type of modality has also helped me with my advocacy of disaster-proof education, which I will tell you later much more about it. So as we all probably know, hybrid learning or blended learning is a combination of face-to-face and online type of delivery of class. So face-to-face plus online equals blended learning or hybrid learning. So this is kind of like a complementing the in-class lessons and the in-class activities that we're doing, okay, with the virtual or online exercises or online classes. So what are those online exercises? It could be a virtual quiz, it could be a discussion forum, and then you can also add additional reading materials or video materials. To continuously, dapat it should be continuous. Okay, it should be kind of like seamless transition from online to face-to-face, continuity of in-class to online class. So that's how I see blended or hybrid learning. Now, how do I experience it? What's my experience for a blended or hybrid learning? This is what I wanted to share with you. Own personal experience, because we are sure that if I share, I'm sure that if I share with you my own personal experience, you are to be assured that this is something that works, because I've been doing this in my classroom for a long time, complementing my physical class with the learning management system through a blended or hybrid learning approach. So this is my hybrid learning experience. We have, in the school where I teach, we have two types, or there are several types actually that we're using. One of which is a web presence, what we call web presence. So this is a type of course delivery mode where the class is conducted largely using a face-to-face session, and then e-class is used primarily as a communication and resource sharing tool. So using your learning management system, you can use your learning management system to communicate with the students and share some resources. But the classes is still being conducted largely in the classroom. This is just one of the approaches. Another one could be the web enhanced mode, or the 50-50 mode. We call this 50-50. So the web enhanced mode is a course delivery mode that's conducted on a blended mode where 50% is allotted and devoted to online learning activities, and the other 50% is for classroom activities or for classroom sessions. So the teacher meets the students inside the classroom once a week and prepares weekly online learning activities. In the school where I teach, the session is done twice a week per subject. It could be Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. So one of those days is devoted for online activities, online learning activities, and the other day is devoted for a physical classroom meeting. Okay, so this is how, this is also one of those ways by which we are doing our hybrid learning. And all of this are powered by a learning management system. Then another one is something that we're all really very familiar with, for sure. We're all teachers here, and I'm sure that we're all very familiar with this one. Of course, the flipped blended. So the flip blended, how do we do this in the school where I teach? Students are given the materials for the class via the digital platform, your learning management system, okay, or MS Teams if you want, okay. But in our case, we use learning management system. So we put it there. All of the materials of the classes are put in the learning management system. It could be an audio, it could be a video instruction, okay. So reading materials are also given online. And then after that, when we go back to the classroom, application and activities happens inside the classroom. So it's kind of like really flipping it. Instead of doing the lecture in the classroom or doing the readings in the classroom, we put it in the learning management system so that the students will have access to it. And then the activities are done in the classroom. This is very effective because in a way, we are facilitating our students' learning and we can see how they are progressing in our classes or in our activities. So the other types are this. We will not go through this one by one because there are kind of like other types of blended or hybrid learning that you can use in the classroom. So these are just some of those types. So we have station rotation, lab rotation, remote blended, flex blended, flip, individual rotation. So all of this are types of blended learning that you can use in a synchronous or synchronous way through the help of a learning management system. Now, how do we prepare to do this blended type of learning using a learning management system? So preparing to blend, I call this preparing to blend. I'll share with you a process that I have sort of developed over the years that I am teaching and that I'm doing this hybrid type of learning and also using learning management system. We can always start with what I call the PIE. So the PIE stands for plan, implement, evaluate. These are three important components for us to be successful in complementing our physical classroom with a learning management system plus the pedagogy and the strategy to deliver the class or to deliver the content. Okay, the first one, planning. So in planning, it's always important to have a clear objectives. Ask yourselves, what are your goals and what are you trying to achieve? You also need to assess your school's capability. It's important to know your school's technological and pedagogical capability to deliver and implement remote teaching and learning or a blended type of learning. Also, please identify the barriers and constraints. Consider learners' access to technology and internet access at home. Because we're, like what I've mentioned, we're doing physical and also online. It's also important to get to know your students, their learning needs, and their learning styles. Then, of course, the teacher readiness. Capacity building for teachers are always important. Okay, make sure that they know how to use the technology and that the technology aligns with pedagogy and content. Okay, in terms of implementation, these are the important things that we need to know. Make sure that your content is readily available and accessible to the students in a learning management system. It helps also when you align your content with the technology, with your learning management system and pedagogy. So your learning management system must be able to support the content that you are providing your students as well as your strategy. So for example, if we're offering blended learning, LMS must support that type of instruction. And that's what Neo LMS is doing for me. Then we go to using the right tools. Mentioning LMS again, have a look at the digital tools that you're already using. Evaluate the potential to be used for a blended type of teaching or hybrid type of teaching. Okay. So one of the tools, and this is actually the meat of this webinar, is to look at the learning management system as a tool to complement our physical classroom learning. So we all know, probably heard that the learning management system, okay, is a tool that will allow teachers to create and deliver content that can be easily accessed by students anytime, anywhere. Be that in a physical classroom, be that at home or anytime, anywhere. It's ubiquitous. It also allows us teachers, okay, to monitor our student engagement, participation, and assess their knowledge and track their performance, even outside of the four walls of the classroom. Or even if we're doing these activities in the classroom, we can always put in the LMS the result of these activities and use a powerful feature of the LMS called competency-based learning to track the progress of our students. Now, these are my suggested guide questions when you're choosing your LMS. Okay. Ask if the LMS is easy to set up. Does it offer a free trial? Does the LMS provider offer full support and assistance to the users? What do you need and what are you trying to achieve in terms of teaching and learning? Does the LMS possess the feature that you're looking for or you want to have? Or what are the technological constraints and barriers that can be addressed by the LMS that you are looking for? Okay. And then after that, you need to choose the right learning activities. This is still part of implementation. Choose the right learning activities. Learning will be virtual, remote, or in class, and you want to make sure that the platform and its feature can support all of these activities. What are the recommended activities that you can do or apply in a learning management system? So these are some of the recommended virtual activities, and all of these activities, I'm also doing this in my class. So we have forums, we have debates. My favorite here is debate. I also use Wiki. I use online group activities because Neo LMS has this capability. I do online exams, online quizzes, a combination of online, and sometimes I do offline exam also, kind of like in classroom exam, and then the results I encode it in the grade book of Neo LMS. I use group chat when we're doing virtual classes. I have free form assessment, I gamify my class, and I use competency-based learning. So all of this that I've mentioned is provided by Neo LMS. So Neo LMS is the learning management system that I'm using, that we have been using for the past 11 years. Not only that it allows me to have my class anytime, anywhere, be that in the classroom or online, especially online, but Neo also is a learning management system that strongly supports adaptive learning. So what can we do in Neo? Neo allows us teachers, or allows me as a teacher, to create engaging classes, and it supports different types or style of teaching: instructor-led, self-paced, blended, and micro classes. You see, instructor-led classes. Even if you're conducting your class largely in the classroom, you can still use the LMS to have or to make your content available to your learner anytime, anywhere. And then later on, during the demo, I will show you how I'm doing it. Okay. In terms of the learner's access, of course, the platform is very clean and intuitive. I've mentioned this earlier. It gives my students access to the content, to my lessons, anytime, anywhere. And they can even track their own progress. And they're even more motivated to learn because I gamify my class. In terms of assessments, so Neo LMS has 14 different types of assessments that you can that the teacher can use. It has a powerful grade book, which is very, very important for me. I use the grade book feature of Neo. Whether I'm doing a classroom activity or an online activity, I put everything in the gradebook feature of Neo LMS. And that gradebook also allows me to compute for the grade of my students automatically. So that's one thing that I like about this. As a teacher, computation of grades is made easy for me by Neo because we already have a calculation scheme that allows me to compute the students, that allows for an automatic computation of grades of the students. And then in terms of quizzes, I can create question banks. You know how you do it in the classroom, where you create, where you have a set A and set B type of exam. So here I can create different question banks, and my students will get random questions when they start taking the quiz. So I don't need now to create type A and type B, type A or set A, set B type of test. I'll just create a quiz, a question bank that can be given, where the students and the questions will be randomized. So that's one thing. And I also have rubrics. I also use the rubrics of Neo LMS. And as I mentioned earlier, competency-based learning. It allows me to align lessons and assignments with the school standards, track and view my student competency and progress using the competency-based learning or mastery and competency and mastery feature of Neo LMS. So whether my students are doing the activities in classroom, I can always record it in Neo, okay? So that I can still track the performance of my students based on these competencies. And of course, automation rules. I always use this. I add rules and actions with a point and click interface, and then execute one or more action when a rule is triggered. So it's kind of like the if then else type of learning. If a student performs this way, then I want the system to do this or a particular activity. So we can add a lot of those automation rules, which will help us also minimize those tasks and activity that we do over and over again as teachers. And then, of course, okay, analytics. This is very important. The LMS or Neo LMS for that matter, has an inbuilt analytics, built-in reports for instant insight. So whether my students are doing, whether I'm doing an in-class activity, I just put it in Neo. Okay, I will always upload all of the records of my students in Neo so that it will be part of the analytics that Neo LMS can provide for me. So it gives me valuable data on how my students are progressing in my class. And I can even create a custom report about it. Okay, Neo is an intelligent platform that allows innovating education through a learning management system, and it also supports adaptive learning, as I mentioned earlier. So soon Neo will release a recommendation engine based on the progress of the students. There will be recommended actions or activities that can be done by the students or by the teacher. So before I discuss the last part of PI, so remember, plan, implement, evaluate, please allow me to do a live, let me just, okay, I will do a live presentation of Neo. Okay, so I will log in as a teacher so that I can demonstrate to you. This is Neo LMS, okay, the one that you're seeing. I have a demo site here that I will use for the demonstration, and then later on I will show you my own class. So I will log in as a teacher here and show you how content, okay, can be created in Neo, or how the content will look in Neo, and how you can design the content in a learning management system that can be taught both online and offline. Because probably you'll be wondering, all right, so we're kind of, how do we do this? If we are teaching in the classroom, do we need to upload the lessons and materials in the LMS or not? Or can we like put everything in the LMS and still teach it in the classroom? The answer there is yes. This is also how I do it. Okay, all of the lessons and materials that I have is uploaded and structured in the learning management system. So everything is here. So the purpose of this is for us, okay, or for our students to have access to our lesson anytime, anywhere. Okay, so all of this are the lessons that a teacher can create. This is how your lesson can look like. Okay. And then inside each lesson, you can create media-rich content. You know how our students can be very visual. My students are very visual. They want to see text. They want to see not only text, but they also want to see pictures and videos. So when you're using an LMS, you can combine text, photos, and videos, okay, in your lesson. So it's easy. And then you know how it is when we're presenting in the classroom and we're using PowerPoint and we're using just bullets because we don't want to flood our PowerPoint with too many text. So if you want your students to have access to that lesson that's not bulleted, so you can put that in an LMS. You can complement it with putting all of the lessons in the learning management system. So you can have this in this way, and then the LMS also has a table of contents like this that allows easy navigation, both for the students and the teachers. They can move from one lesson to another using the table of contents. And at the same time, if you will notice, it's hierarchical here. So some of the topics are indented to the right, just to show the structure of a lesson there, so that the student knows that this one is part of this, okay, and this one is kind of like a standalone type of activity. Okay, so this is how the lesson could look like. Let's see if I have something here with the video. Okay. Okay, so it's important. Remember, it's important that the students have access to your lessons anytime, anywhere, and that could be done in learning management system. So what you will do, and this is something that you can do as a teacher, and this is also what other teachers are doing. If, for example, lesson 1, introduction, is being taught inside the classroom, so this is discussed in an in-classroom activity, and you want to hide this to the students before you do your in-class lesson, it's very easy to do in NeoLMS. Just open your lesson and you see this feature here that says shown or hide. Okay, you can hide this lesson first, then do your in-class lecture, and then after the in-class lecture, you can already show this lesson. So they will have kind of like, if you want the students to have access only, for example, before the lecture, the in-class lecture, you don't want the students to be seeing in advance what you're going to discuss, then you can hide some of the lessons and have them open after your in-class lesson so that the students will have a chance to review and go back to the previous lesson or to the lesson that has been discussed in the classroom. So that's kind of like complementing both your physical and your online classes. Or you can do it in an automated way. So for example, you can hide some of the lessons here by using this hide and shown feature over here. So you hide some lesson, and then when a student completes reading a lesson online, okay, over here in the completion tab, you can add a completion action, and that completion action could be showing the next lesson. So this will automatically be done by the system. So if you want it alternate, okay, hide lesson 1 because I'm discussing this in the classroom. So once you've done, once you're done with your in-class lesson, then the next lesson will open for the students. Or you can do it in a drip content way. So we have here a drip content feature. Modules over here. Okay, let's enable drip content right there. So a drip content allows you to set a preset day, number of days when the lesson will open. So if you want the lessons to open every other day, every 2 days, kind of like after your in-class lecture, the lesson will open as a handouts to the students or as a material for them after your in-class lesson, then you can do that. Every 2 days, the lesson will open, the students will have access to that. Because every 2 days, that's when you finish your in-class lecture. So you can use the drip content feature. So there are many features still that you can use to manage, the way that your students will be able to access your lessons. So you can manage it. It's just a matter of having like a blueprint or a layout or a diagram of when are you going to do your in-class lecture, and when is the virtual class going to happen, and when do you want the lesson to open based on how your students are asked, based on the completion of a certain activity that's done inside the classroom. So you can do that in NeoLMS. You can also, okay, create 14 different types of assessments, as I have mentioned. Okay, so the assessments can be online and it can also be offline. By offline, I meant this one. Okay, you can create an offline assignment. By offline, that means that the activities are done in the classroom, but you can record it in NeoLMS or make the announcement using your learning management system. So for example here, classroom seat work. That's going to happen, say, tomorrow. Okay, so over here, this is going to be tomorrow. Then I can make an announcement. Okay, like, hello everyone, please prepare for a seat work tomorrow. Bring the following. So you can do this. Okay, and then the best part is that once you save this and you announce this to the student by publishing it, the student gets a notification about this activity and they will know what to bring and they will know what to prepare. So they will receive an announcement, a push notification even when they are using the mobile app, when they have downloaded the mobile app. So they will receive a notification, then the students can get ready for the seat work that will be done or activity that will be done in the classroom. And then once it's done, once you're done with the activity, the next part is, of course, if it's a seat work, so the student gets to do a paper and pencil type of test. So the students now submits that SIT to you, paper and pencil, you get to check it manually, and then the grade can be encoded in the LMS so that it forms part of the analytics of progress of the learner. So you can easily encode those grades either here, or you go to the grade book and encode their grades to that offline activity. So that's complementing again the activities that you're doing in the classroom and the learning management system. Another thing, if it's a performance task, for example, like a role play or activities, kind of like a performance task really that they need to do in the classroom, what type of activity can I use? So you can use, again, either offline, because that's an offline type of activity, and then create or use a rubric, right here, to evaluate the student's performance inside the classroom. So if we are lucky enough to have a Wi-Fi in the classroom, or kind of like a data that you can use, so while the students are doing their performance task, you can already use the rubric to grade them instantly. So instantly you can grade your students, right? So that's again complementing physical classroom activities with the learning management system. So there are a lot of ways by which we can do this. And as I promised you, I will show you how I'm doing it in my class. So here I will log in. So I teach in De La Salle University in Dasmariñas. So we have also a single sign-on feature. So we do single sign-on with Office 365. This is my class. And this class, this one, that I'm going to show you, this class has already concluded. But while this class is going live a few months ago, so we started in January. 3 months after we started, we had a lockdown in March. We just woke up one day and we're not going to school anymore. So what happens? It's kind of like a normal thing for us. We didn't really panic at all because we're ready. My modules, my lessons are ready. It's already here. So I wasn't really worried that, so what's going to happen now? How can I continue my class? All of the teachers and the students in the university where I teach already knows that when classes are suspended or when we have to do online learning, we have a learning management system that will allow us to access lessons, or that will allow them to still access lessons and activities anytime, anywhere. So we were ready. We were one of the schools who are actually ready with remote learning. So all of my students are able to access. We were able to continue with our classes. The students are able to continue learning. So we didn't really have a hard time adjusting. This is one thing, a very important thing that helped us. We survived because of a learning management system, and we survive because we know how to complement, how to teach both in a physical classroom and in an online or virtual way. So my students, they just keep accessing all of the lessons that are here. So some of the lessons right now, we're still in lockdown. So how is my online class going? So my current class is this one over here. So you see, we've just started a couple of weeks ago. So I've already created my lessons. So my lessons are set to open at a specific date. So my student gets to have access to this lesson. We even have gospel reading there. All right, so over here, so my students will just access this lesson. And then we do synchronous session. I schedule synchronous session with them using the LMS's calendar over here. So in the calendar, I can schedule live class meeting using MS Teams over here. So my student gets to see this and they click on this one. So the reason why I'm showing you this is just to really show you and share with you how complementing your physical classroom with a learning management system will help you, or will help us all of us be able to easily adjust to whatever disturbances is happening. And what I really want to, and what I'm hoping really in the next days, probably when everything is back to normal, is I'm hoping that we will not forget that using a learning management system or using kind of like digital tools for teaching, how it will help us really, be able to still continue teaching and learning despite of those disturbances. Okay, so let's not forget that we can make through the learning management system or a hybrid type of teaching and learning, we will be able to still provide and give access to education to our students. And then, of course, lastly, here, a part of the pie is evaluating for success. After your implementation of a learning management system, X number of semesters, perhaps a first semester or first year, it's always important to evaluate for success. And I have 3 keywords for that: guide, monitor, and adjust. We need to guide the teachers and the students and other stakeholders, including parents, on the process on what to do, okay, with a blended type of learning. Keep track of the progress of everyone, the teachers and the students, and make the necessary adjustments and improvement as needed. So this is very, very important. Okay, now over here, the last slide. So just to show you a little bit of an advice, adopt an asynchronous mindset. Okay, please, learning doesn't have to be done or synchronously done all the time. Okay, we need to adopt an asynchronous mindset. That's why we have this learning management system. Okay, we can put everything in the learning management system and give students access to those learning materials anytime, anywhere. Okay, it doesn't have to be always live classes, so that they will have ample time to read, to learn, and this will also give us teachers ample time to reflect and check all of the activities. So with that, thank you very much for listening. I hope that I was able to share with you some valuable information on how we can complement physical classroom activities with the learning management system. Okay. There. All right.
Thank you very much, Jane, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for opening up our minds to various ways of looking at the learning management system, and particularly you talking around the topic of the webinar, which is complementing physical learning with learning management system. I believe that you have been able to make very valuable points, and even me myself have taken some notes as well. You talked about various learning styles, just to mention a few: flipped, blended, self-paced, supplemented, blended, web enhanced. I mean, you spoke around a lot of styles, which would help educators to be able to position learning to their students in a more creative and productive manner. You talked about, how to plan, implement, and evaluate, from a teacher perspective or from an educator perspective. I mean, that's fantastic. Also, you also talked about in some of the demo how to guide, how to monitor, and how to adjust. So you spoke a lot, and I believe that since this session is recorded, we would make these recordings available to people that would want to digest it further. So thank you very much. And this philosophy really stands with your presentation. In learning, you would teach, and in teaching, you would learn. Thank you, Jane, for teaching us today, and we have learned a whole lot. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So
Thank you
for the audience on the call, we'll be going to do a very short poll. It will take you less than 30 seconds to complete it. Please go ahead and participate in the poll. Thank you. Thank you very much for participating in the poll. As we go along, we would have surveys at the end of the webinar. So please take some few minutes or few moments just to complete the survey at the end of the webinar. At this juncture, we would now be moving into the panel discussion. Again, if you have any questions for our panelists, please post it on the Q&A section of this webinar. We would do our best to answer as much questions as possible. So starting off with the first question, which goes to both Godia and Jen, how important is blended learning? I mean, I think this question is being posed from a context of the teacher or the educator, you know, and let's see whether we can cite some examples that will help our audience understand the whole concept of blended learning and how it is important. So thank you very much, Godia.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Mohammed. I would also say thumbs up to Jen. Thank you very much for that. I would not say much on blended learning because Jen has taken us on that. But let me say this, blended learning is not just the future. Blended learning is the present. Now, this is what we are using now because we want to have higher productivity. The modern classroom is an infusion of physical and online class, and has a lot of advantages. It has a lot of importance to learning. One of it is that education is more accessible. Now, the physical teaching method, which is the traditional one, makes materials available to students during the school hours. Now, it's not all students that have access to the library after school hours, and even when they do, it is not actually easy for them to interact with other students because the students might be in their own in different homes or different hostels, and they might not have access to them. Now, when they have these materials and they leave school, like I said, and they want to interact with other students, how do they do? That's when the virtual class comes in. Now, with the virtual class, after the classroom, after the physical class, or after the school hours, they can log into their class at any time and interact with other students. That's a very, very important thing. You know, okay, like say I learned something today in the physical class and I did not get it properly, I didn't understand it properly, I want better insight. I can log in and interact. There will be a forum. There's always a forum, you know, on the class. Say like, let's say biology class, I log into the forum and I interact with other students. Now, another thing is we have audio recordings, like Jen said earlier. There are audio recordings that the child can, the learner can come in and listen to over and again and have better understanding of the subject matter. Now, that is a fusion of the physical class, what the person had in class, and then the virtual class. It's still the same class, but okay, this one can be done even outside the physical classroom. Another thing is you agree with me that all students don't learn at the same pace. Some learn very fast, some just learn at a normal rate, and some are pretty slow. Now, in the physical classroom, the students can have, of course, they'll be taken at the same pace. The classroom teacher will take them at the same pace. Now, some of them will not learn, some of them will not understand, or some will feel that the teacher is actually pulling them back because they have learned, they've gone ahead of others. Now, when they have that physical lesson, they can come back and log into the virtual class and learn at their own place, at their own pace. Sorry, okay. They go through it the way their level of understanding or their level of comprehension allows them. Now, this will promote deeper learning. If it uses stress, you would agree with me that when someone does not understand, or the person is meant to will I say reduce his level of understanding or go at a slower pace? The person gets stressed, the learner gets stressed, so it reduces stress on the learner, and it increases students' satisfaction. One other importance is there is a more engagement between teachers and students. Now, the blended learning presents an increased opportunity for students, like I said earlier, to connect with their fellow students, and now with also their tutors, their teachers, their professors. They can connect via email, via progress reports, or on message boards. Okay, this learning style helps students and their instructors to become more engaged with one another. Now, the teachers can stay in touch with, like Jen said earlier, stay in touch with the progress of the students better. And the students can ask more questions, more personal questions, without feeling embarrassed. There are some times that one does not understand, not because he is slower, but then he's embarrassed to ask that question in class because probably the students might make fun of him. An example is when I was in secondary school and I had a problem with maths. Now, in the maths class, I didn't know maths, but all my classmates seemed like they understood it. Okay, there are certain things they will teach that they all keep nodding their heads and keep contributing, and I can't contribute, and I can't ask a question because I don't want to look like the dull person in the class. I don't want to be embarrassed. Now, if I had that kind of blended learning system, okay, then I wouldn't ask in class, but log in and then have a kind of one-on-one tutorship with my teacher. Now, these are just one of the very, very few importance of blended learning to our educational system. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Kodia. So just to add to that, I agree with what Kodia has mentioned, right? That's how important blended learning is. And another importance of blended learning is that it gives the teachers and the students the experience of the best of both worlds, online and physical classroom. I like blended learning because blended learning still allows us to have that social interaction, live social interaction with our students and students with their classmates. So we're not taking away that human interaction, physically being together in one area or in one room with their classmate helps a lot in developing our social and emotional skills. So that's how important blended learning is. So it gives you the best of both worlds, physical and online, and it makes you ready anytime that a disturbance happens that will probably disrupt or hamper the our capability or ability to go to the physical classroom, kind of like what's happening now. Because we know how to implement a blended learning style of teaching, then we can easily adjust from online to live, or live class, live in classroom session, to a virtual session. It's not going to be very difficult for us. The transition will be seamless. The transition will be smooth from physical classroom to a virtual classroom. That's how important blended learning is for me. So it makes us ready. It actually makes learning or education disaster proof. So anytime, anywhere, we'll have access to the lessons and the activities. It makes learning ubiquitous.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you very much, Godia, for that response, or for that response to the question. So I would like to call again on Jen to answer this question, particularly just talking about what is the process of implementing LMS, just to give the audience some idea of what it takes to do this, especially also looking at the ease and all the difficulty of implementation. Thank you.
All right. So this is the best thing. When you are implementing or when you want to use an LMS, it's always easy when you have an LMS that's easy to use. For example, Neo LMS, for example, the first process, is to have like a really good selection process amongst your team. So you need to have a team who will take care of the selection process. You don't just pick an LMS and that's it. You need to evaluate the LMS that you're using. Earlier during the presentation, I shared some of the questions that you need to ask in choosing a learning management system. So those are important questions that you need to ask. Will the learning management system help you achieve your goal? Do you have a really good selection process and evaluation process to choose the best LMS? Once you've chosen an LMS, you don't just grab it and sign up right away. First, you have to try it. Any product, anything that we want to buy, you need to try it first before actually buying it or subscribing to it. So make sure that the LMS offers a free version that you can try, a free trial, just to test if it fits you, if it suits you. Then after that, you subscribe to the LMS if you're happy with it, or you can have a proof of concept if you want, a POC, just to test the LMS if it works for you, or if it fits your objective or will help you achieve your objective. Then after that, if you're happy with it, you subscribe to it, okay, and make sure that there is someone from the provider who can train you and help you with the setup. So you subscribe, LMS will be configured, LMS will be set up for you, the look and feel of the LMS, or someone will train you on how to use the LMS. And then after you're trained, after the LMS is configured, then you go live and use it. Create the student's account, create the teacher's accounts, and then the content is also there and prepared, and then you go live. And if you're going to ask me, how long does it take to implement an LMS? Once you've subscribed to an LMS, the implementation process or go live process can be as fast as 2 weeks to a month when the teachers are ready, when the contents are ready, the LMS is also there. For example, Neo LMS is a platform. It's an LMS that allows you to just point, click, upload, and it's there. So you can set up Neo LMS in less than a week or less than 2 weeks. Once you have everything, you can upload it. When you create a free trial, that free trial instance that you create, that could be your permanent LMS when you finally subscribe, and you'll just polish it, you'll just refine it, and then you will add your content, and you can use it in as fast as 2 weeks or not, or even less if you have the content. So those are the important, it's a very simple process. You start with the selection process, okay? Then trial, then training, then you go live. It's not gonna take you long to implement a learning management system in your school, right?
Thank you very much for that, Jane, for that response. So I would like to call on Godia again to answer this question. In what ways can the LMS be infused in physical learning? Again, some of these points Jane has covered, but again, let's just see whether we can talk about it from the context of our own scenarios. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Now, the physical learning has its own advantage in the sense that there is a face-to-face interaction where students can learn from the instructor's expression, and instructors can also gauge the level of understanding of the students through their expressions, among other things. Now, with the learning management system, we find that it's very affordable and can take a large class and saves time. Now, how can this be infused? How can we put the physical class, which is what we know, how can we put the LMS into the physical class, which is what we know? Now, like as teachers, not all of us are familiar with technology. Before now, that is the pre-COVID era, teachers mostly use the traditional way of teaching. You know, they know how to do the lesson plan, they teach the students face to face, they make sure the students are in class and all that. So what do you do now that you have to infuse the virtual class into the physical class? You sit down with your lesson plan, go through the lesson plan, think about how you can teach part of your lesson plan with technology. Look at that, okay, what can I add here that will make my students more productive? How can I put technology into this that can help them become better? Now, this might be a short video during the class, during the physical class, or something they can go to later. It might be pictures, okay, just something to break the long traditional lecture they are used to. Okay, then you have them discuss it in class. Okay, this breeds a very exciting class, and these students are more technologically compliant than the present day students, okay, than what we used to have. So it makes them more excited. They want to learn better. No, that is one of the ways you can put or infuse LMS into physical learning. And another thing is to give them a homework that is so much fun. For instance, you're in a class teaching, and then your period ends, or let's say you even finish the class, okay, and then you want them to study ahead of for the next class, or you want to give them a tip, or you want them to understand it better. What do? You go to the LMS class, okay, and then create a discussion for them, an interactive discussion. This is something that would bring out even the most quiet students in class. Nobody's looking at him, nobody's seeing him, and they get interactive, and then they bring out beautiful ideas that and that even you, the teacher, will be so surprised at. Okay, so one of the things you do is to give them fun homework, give them interactions, give them debates they can do there. So you see that you're putting both of them together. This is something they can do in class, but you're making them to go do it online and enhancing the class better. Now, you don't have to revamp your entire course, okay, to accommodate the blended learning. You can start in small ways, then pick up speed. One good thing you should do also is to ask for feedback from your learners, so that you don't enforce something that from them on them that is not working. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Godia, for that explanation and how to make the LMS more interactive, especially when you're infusing it into a physical learning. So at this juncture, I would like to call on Aisha to answer this question. How will the LMS scale as the school or organization grows? Thank you. Hey, so this question, just to recap the question for Aisha, how will the LMS scale as the school or organization grows? Thank you, Aisha.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Ms. Jane. Thank you, Godia, for the wonderful presentation. The question states that how would the LMS scale as the school or organization grows? So, first of all, before going ahead to answer this question, let's try and find out between LMS and school or organization growth, which is depending on the order. In my own opinion, I think LMS will help to grow your school, because virtual learning is now the new normal system of education. So in the sense that you find out that some people or some parents will even consider bringing their children, their kids to your school if they find out that you are using the LMS, that is virtual learning, because it makes learning more interactive and more efficient. So to answer that very question, let's say, so as a school owner or as a school or an organization, you need to ask yourself a question: is the school or the organization growing? If so, then you must ensure that your e-learning programs can keep up to that. Therefore, whether you're starting learning program from scratch, or you are adding training content to an existing program. Creating a scalable solution is imperative, especially for fast-growing businesses. Example, school. Normally, schools usually grows in a very fast level. So, although it can seem daunting because there are dozens of tools in the market to help your school or business to be successful, but I think for growing school or organization, investing in a tool like a learning management system, that is LMS, is immensely beneficial, harnessing the scalability of an LMS. So LMS enables your learning program to grow as your school or organization grow, such that if you are planning on opening a new remote location or expanding into let's say another country, a cloud-based LMS can allow your school or organization to create a consistent and accessible learning experience for remote and international learners. So similarly, organizations looking to add significant amount of training content for their sales team within the next, let's say maybe within the next year, they can plan ahead with an LMS to strategize seamless reporting and deployment methods. Or maybe let's say if you are still in the process of building a program, you can leverage the reporting capabilities of an LMS to measure and track the effectiveness of learning programs and content. As your school organization evolves, an LMS offers a host of valuable features to cater for your learning needs. So I think in addition, as your organization or school grows or takes step in a different direction, the consistent evaluation of your learning program, its delivery and scalability will contribute to the overall success of the program in the long term. With the right tools and content, this transition will be easier and most effective for you and your learners, in the sense that LMS as an OEM allows you to add training in other languages. For example, if your school organization is looking to expand overseas or abroad, so considering different language options is important to plan in advance, in which LMS have already made provisions for that, because it supports, or let's say LMS is available in more than 40 languages, including right to left languages, so that users from around the world can easily connect. So I think LMS will help your school to grow, and as your school organization grows, LMS can also scale too. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. It's me again, Jen. I'd just like to add to what Aisha's shared with us. So the LMS should really be able to support the growth of the schools or any organization, especially, for example, in terms of the number of population. By growing, we meant, of course, that's the number of population, the number of users. So the LMS should be able to have that capability to hold as many numbers of students as it can. It could be millions of students. It could be thousands of students. So, for example, Neo LMS, one of the schools that's using Neo LMS here in the Philippines, they have 85,000 students. There's a school that's using Neo LMS in other countries with 100,000 students. So as the school grows in numbers, the LMS should also be able to hold that many numbers of students. And as the school grows also, that means more content, more resources will be uploaded in the LMS. So the LMS should have the capacity, the capability to have a storage that can hold those numbers of content that will be uploaded in the LMS. Neo LMS allows teachers to upload unlimited files. So we have unlimited storage for teachers and for students. The maximum file upload is 1 gig per upload, but you know, a teacher can upload as many 1 gig as they want. So that's part of growing. The more students that you have, the more content that you will upload, the more storage, the more space that you will need, and the LMS should be able to sustain that. The LMS should be able to hold that in an instant. If the schools say that tomorrow from 1,000 students, we are growing to 10,000 students, then the LMS should be able to support that instantly. So that's how I see how the LMS can scale as the school grow or as an organization grow. And one important point also that I like that Aisha mentioned is that the LMS should also help the organization grow. We have schools here in the Philippines who started small, but when they started using Neo LMS, the number of enrollees that they have also increased, because most parents wants the students to stay at home because they're afraid that of the health risk that's posing when they go to the physical classroom. So they choose schools that has an LMS, or at least using Neo LMS, and they enroll their students there. So that's how LMS complements school growth also. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jane. Thank you, Aisha, for also for responding to this particular question. I think you've brought a lot of valuable insight, to the question. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Aisha. So now moving now to the next question, I would like to call on Mr. Nafiu to respond to this question. So what are the possible consequences to those who stick only to physical learning? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Good morning, Jen, and good morning, everyone here. I would like to start with a thumbs up to Jen for a wonderful presentation. It actually covers almost everything we need to discuss here in this webinar. But nevertheless, this question that will point out some key points for the attendees to grab what it means for them to grab. What are the possible consequences to those who stick only to physical learning? As Mohammed said in his introduction earlier, that the advantages of online learning can never be emphasized. So also, I would like to borrow this and say the consequences of failure to adapt this online learning can never be, or can never also be emphasized. As Jen put it, the learning, this online learning, as it comes now in the technology, I would like to give an instant examples, because I believe there are attendees here in Nigeria and maybe some in the northern or southern part of the country. Let's think of now, we have a National Open University. National Open University of Nigeria is a university that basically do its programs online. So, like now, the secondary schools that are trying to embrace this online learning management system in particular, this LMS will help your students to prepare against their university education. Most of times, students tend not to apply to now just because they lack the ability to like kind of attract with technology and participate in online learning. One major thing that is a consequence to any individual or an organization, as it may be, if it sticks to physical learning, is that you are about to be outdated. There is an example also I wanted to give that happened with one company that produces this cell phone. I don't want to call a name, but I believe Nigerians will know, and even if you are not in Nigerians, you know, there is a particular company that produces a cell phone, which basically all Nigerians use that cell phone earlier than now. But because that company fails to adapt the technology, the new version of the cell phones that comes into existence, others have accepted that, then they overtake that company. Now we don't talk any longer about that company because many of our cell phones have changed to that other companies that when they came at the earlier, we were thinking this is a small phone, these are this, these are that. We call them China. But now they are more of our hands than that initial cell phone, simply because the company refuses to adopt the technology as it comes. So similar to this will happen to any person who refuses to accept the learning, to accept the LMS, learning management system, or online learning at all in all. So the next thing that will happen, as Jane put it, in a situation of disaster, disturbance, and some pandemic or crisis, like what happened, the novel COVID-19, that we spent almost seven months at home doing nothing. Basically, many countries, that underdeveloped countries, that are yet to accept this technology, puts us in a serious problem, because our children and our students cannot engage themselves at home. We were crying that there is no school, there is no this, there is not. At the same time, this pandemic is global, and then the developed countries are continuing with their learning, simply because they have accepted this learning management system, or online learning, as you can put it. So if any person, individual, or an organization who fails to accept this, or is willing to stick to physical learning alone, will face a lot of consequences, which can never be emphasized as overemphasized, as I put it earlier. There are many, but these few ones, like another thing I wanted to give also as an example, the case of Northeast, the case of Boko Haram issues. It's a crisis that happened in the northeastern part of Nigeria that's turned back all students and teachers back home. There's no school, there is nothing, and then it affects the learning. And learning does not need not to be affected with any things like this because of the technology. Now, if you are part of those that stick to, or willing to stick to, only physical learning, you are likely to be a potential victim of all these things. The disaster, when it happens, you can't go to physical learning and have your learning. When there is crisis, when there are disturbances, when there is pandemic, like this coronavirus case, like I put it, there will always be a problem. I want to also say something lastly, like I as a principal of El Buhaj Royal Academy, we are into this, as in we subscribe to learning management system. And to this end, I am happy to say, for the past 2 years, my children are not going to any JAM training center. You know, when your as a study student are about to graduate, and then they are busy preparing themselves, and you preparing them for their WAEC and NECO, as the case may be, and then at the same time, JAM is coming. So JAM, everybody knows JAM is E now. So at the same time they are coming to school, they will be busy going for training, JAM training, and what have you. But for me, and for my school, El Buhaj Royal Academy, my students need not to go anywhere, simply because they are conversant, they are familiar, they've accepted this learning management system, and they are working with it. And alhamdulillah, they are making it successful. So to anyone who refuses to accept this, or willing to stick only to physical learning, like I put it earlier, is a potential victim of all these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nafiu, for that response. I think you were able to demonstrate, you know, the effectiveness and the benefit of moving away from physical learning alone. Like we say, or like you said, you know, the benefit cannot be overemphasized. It needs to be a continuous discussion, and it's good that El Buhaj Royal Academy has adopted, you know, learning management system in its entirety, And also the example that you cited as well for JAM that has gone E is also a fantastic way to show the trend in which the education space is getting into. We all have to jump on it. It's almost like you're on a burning platform. If you're on a burning platform, you got to make it, you got to change. If not, you perish, right? So I think that's the key point. Thank you very much for that. I would now be calling on Aisha again to respond to this question, which is what integration features can a business or school leverage for productivity and efficiency? Thank you. Okay, just calling on Aisha again to respond to this question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Mr. Nafiu. Thank you, everyone. So the question states that what integration features can a business or school leverage for productivity and efficiency? So what I'll have to say is that in this rapidly digital age, it is unimaginable for a business or school to continue to remain relevant and sustainable without leveraging technology. So adapting or embracing the new normal is now the most appropriate and right thing to do. So the new normal is nothing but leveraging technology through virtual learning. Moreover, I think coronavirus has been an eye-opener for all of us because we have seen how it has really affected so many students and schools that were not using the LMS, the virtual learning system. So we have the OEMs such as Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, the LMS, and others, but we're not using them up until now that we realize their importance and significance. Therefore, for any school or business to become more productive and more efficient in the society, I think the right integration feature is to leverage with technology, which involves the use of virtual learning to complement the already existing physical learning that we have. So I think amidst all this, to remain relevant in the present day, businesses leveraging technology is imperative. So LMS is a robust OEM that can allow for integration with other OEMs, such as the Google Meet, the YouTube. You can decide to download a video from YouTube and upload for your students on the LMS for them to see. You can browse the internet, download files, pictures, and other things so that you can upload for your students. So you see, in that way, LMS is a robust OEM, and digital transformation is not just inevitable, but it is probably all that stands between existence and obsolescence. So for any business or any school that wants to remain relevant, so I think the right feature to leverage is technology, the use of the virtual learning, because that is the new normal that is on ground now. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Aisha. So thank you for the response. So again, I'll call on Mr. Nafiu to answer this question. How effective is learning when learning institution combines both physical and the learning management system? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. To attend to this question, how effective is learning when a learning institution combines both physical learning and LMS, I would like to talk about 3 key areas for effective learning. As a teacher, every teacher knows for effective learning to take place, these areas are very significant. One is the guide and instructional materials, availability of instructional materials. During planning, every teacher needs to get relevant instructional materials that will help his students understand the lesson better. Now, when you combine physical learning and LMS, we know there are instructional materials that are either dangerous so fast that we cannot observe them during classrooms lessons if it is physical, or they are dangerous or they are harmful, which we cannot bring it to the classroom. Now, if we are in the classroom during physical learning and we are lucky that we combine this our physical learning LMS, we can be able to get all those sort of instructional materials which will definitely facilitate the learning abilities of your students. Whether it's harmful because it's online, you are watching them, they can't harm you. Whether they are dangerous, you are watching them, they can't affect you, like a volcano. Like you want to see how lion run fast, something like that. You can't see them. You can't brought a lion to a classroom. Neither can you bring a snake, even a snake to the classroom, a live snake. So all this can be gotten online. You can show them online, and the children, you can post, you can do whatever you like because it's flexible. So this definitely is unarguable that irrelevant instructional materials to each and every lesson facilitate learning, which in turn will yield an effective learning. So anybody or any institutions that combines these two is definitely going to have this learning effective to their children. Then the next things I wanted to also point out during the learning and what have you is, and as a teacher also, you have to measure whether how effective the learning, whether the learning that took place, is it effective or ineffective. How you do that is by evaluation and assessment. And this evaluation and assessment, as we know as teachers, during physical learning, we are like actually disturbed with behavior of children, either cheating, malpractice, and what have you. And then at the same time, maybe was it gender during her introduction presentation, that a child that is not it's not that bright is likely to face a challenge when it is during physical learning alone. If this is a quiz, maybe question and answer session with a class in a physical learning, then you are asking this, you are asking that, and when it comes to that particular child, you find it difficult, and it will be embarrassing for him, and that will definitely affect not only his learning ability but also his psychology and his emotional emotion. So for that, learning, combining physical learning and LMS in this sense of evaluation and assessment will help and make sure that your assessment and evaluation is effective. And we know as teachers also, it's through evaluation that we get to know whether our learning have taken place and is it effective or not. If it is, then we can have that. Also on that, it encourages self-dependence during this assessment. Like in LMS, there are vast things to use, like a quiz, debate, taste, and what have you, all under LMS. Now you can choose any tool you wanted to use to measure the effectiveness of learning that took place during the physical class or during the virtual class. So this is the other aspects that it will make sure that the learning is effective when you combine the two. The last segment I wanted to discuss is we also, as a teachers, we all know at times a teacher will teach, but at the end the goal or the objective will not be achieved. And then what a teacher will do is to repeat a class. But then every teacher is facing a problem, not only a teacher, but also the management of in those learning institutions face a problem when children fail to understand the learning at the first place. Because during repetition, you have to create a period which is not into existence. We are all guided by a calendar to stick to the end of the term or a semester, as the case may be. Now, when it happens that you need to repeat a class and then there is not that space from the calendar or any other way, learning management system will help you to do that without any problem. You can repeat your class on, and you can, because the record is there. So the student doesn't need to bother that I didn't understand now. If you didn't understand now, you can understand later. You can play it on and on again until you understood. So this idea, this learning, combining physical learning and LMS will definitely help to overcome the problem of repeating, the problem of time management during repeating a lesson, which is happening in our learning institutions. And finally, one thing I want to close with it is learning, physical learning. Most of the times there are some peculiar subjects, like for me, that I'm a seasonal math teacher. When you're teaching mathematics, at times, depending on the environment, the nature of the student, the nature of the topic as well, how difficult the topic is, and then the psychology, the mindset of the children also help in this aspect. They tend to be bored at times. They tend to be bored in the classroom physically. But when it is combined with these elements, there are so much things that you can make your classrooms or your learning very fun, and it will be excited. The children will be there and they will be happy learning the mathematics or any subject as the case may be. So this also, when you combine the learning management system and the physical learning, it helps to overcome the problem of boring in the classroom. The children will not get bored because there are lot of things to engage them, either in the physical classroom or in the virtual classroom. So as I mentioned, I would like to quickly pointed them out again finally, that the point, how effective, I look at it in 3 areas. One, in the area of instructional materials, the availability and the availability of all those instructional materials in our LMS, and the 2, the evaluation and assessment, which covers monitoring as well aspect. It will help you, one, to overcome the problem of cheating, examination malpractice, and other of you. It encourages self-dependence by children that are of different capabilities. It's a whole lot of things. And then finally, it overcome the problem of repeating a class when the class that held wasn't successful. So it helped not only the children or the teacher, it also helped the school, the institutional management that will take care of that. So finally, when you combine physical learning and LMS, it ensures that your learning capacity will definitely be effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nafiu, for that. Just pointing out the effectiveness when you combine physical and LMS. I think you make a very fantastic point. So our final question before we go into the Q&A, I would just like to call on Jane to respond to this question. Why is LMS the best option for school? Just in closing of this panel discussion session. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I think all of us here, including all of the panelists, have already mentioned why a learning management system really is also a best option, or the best option for schools. For one, and as I've mentioned by our distinguished panelists also, A learning management system will allow teachers and schools and even heads of schools to create and deliver content that can be easily made available and accessed by the students anytime, anywhere. It will allow teachers, it will allow us to monitor our students' engagement, participation, assess their knowledge, and track their performance even outside of the four walls of the classroom. So whether they're inside the classroom or outside of the classroom, a learning management system will help us, track their progress, assess their learning, enhance even collaboration, which we're so afraid before that, when we're doing or when we're using LMS, we're so afraid that social learning will be taken away from them, but it's not. We have a lot of features, and LMS has a lot of features by which collaboration and even social engagement can still happen. There are group activities, there are discussion forums that increases engagement among learners and students. And this will also help allow teachers to develop early interventions. The analytics that's being provided by the LMS will allow teachers to develop early interventions based on the data presented by the system that are also based on automation rules and condition set early interventions for students who probably need more time to catch up and move up, or for students who are probably falling behind. And we don't need to do that manually. We can use the LMS automation rules for that. And one of the most important thing why an LMS is best for schools, an LMS, Neo LMS, for example, it's a learning management system, as I mentioned, that supports adaptive learning. That's helping our students catch up and move up. That we are, and that helps us ensure that no child is left behind. That every child gets an access to education anytime, anywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Jane. And I think the passion comes out from all the panel members. Thank you very much, panelists, for your time and just for elaborating on the benefit of LMS and especially integrating with physical learning. We're just going to go for a short poll before we come in for a Q&A. Please just take a few seconds to respond to the poll. Thank you. Okay, we're just going to continue with the Q&A, and I would like to pose this question to Jane. So there's a number of questions that have come through, but what is very important is to just see whether we can come up with a theme of the questions. So there were questions around security, and there was a question around the offline mode for the new LMS. So is the new LMS also available on offline mode? And what is the general security around that? So I don't know, Jane, if you can take that question. Thank you.
For the offline mode, we've already released the version for iOS, and then we're soon releasing the version for Android. So in the offline mode, as we've already mentioned earlier, it will allow students to still have to download the activities and the content that were previously in the LMS and have access to it offline. And then they will also be able to answer activities or perform activities even offline. And then when they go online, everything will sync. In terms of security, well, I can for sure say that Neo LMS is highly secured because we are seated in Amazon Cloud. We're powered by AWS, and we know that AWS is one of the most highly secured cloud platforms. So in terms of its security, we have not had any breach in our security since Neo was created. Yeah. So just wait for the release of Android, the offline version for Android. It's soon to be released. I just can't mention the date, but the iOS, you can already try it. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that, Jane, for that response. So generally, the questions that have come in are questions that we have fielded before from that perspective. So so we'll just continue with with the procedure of today. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming on the call. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you were able to pick up one or two things. Thank you very much to all the panel, to all the panelists, for just being on the call today, listening to various discussions that have been happening on the platform on this webinar. We will continue to bring you these webinar discussions as we make it more relevant and relevant. So thank you, Jane. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Mr. Nafiu, and also thank you, Godia, for for being on the call. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. What we will do is that we would send you all the materials for the webinar. We would also upload the video on our various social media handles and also communicate those links to you so that you can consume the material. Please feel free to contact us should you have any questions. Should you want to deploy the LMS and you need some consultation, you could engage with Virtual Formatics. Also, if you just want to reach out to get the experience from El Buhaj Royal Academy, you can also reach out to them as well to get a feel of some of their challenges of using, or some of their experiences of using new LMS. Again, thank you all. Thanks to all the panelists, and we would be ending the webinar now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.